Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Rachel Yang. Today we're going to talk about kimchi. We're going to talk about how to make kimchi and 3 different dishes you can actually make with kimchi. When I was little, I did not like kimchi because kimchi was something that was spicy. I remember my mom would always rinse the kimchi in water so all the spiciness would go away. But now this is one dish that I literally have every single meal. So I'll make kimchi soba salad using a less fermented kimchi. And then we'll do kimchi cheese pancake using a just fermented kimchi. And lastly, I'll do kimchi pork belly stew with one of those funky kimchi that's been sitting in your fridge for a while. So often people think kimchi is just one thing, it's just cabbage and spicy, but when you go to Korea, different regions have a different kinds of kimchi. A lot of different cultures have this fermented vegetable. That's how it started in Korea too, it's like probably 30 BC, like super long time ago. They literally started with a just fermented vegetable with salt. And then it has kind of became this spicy, garlicky, and they make with all sorts of different vegetables. So it's a very regional thing in Korea too. We are making kimchi here with Napa Cabbage. You want to find the one that are kind of heavy. So we're going to cut it into 4 quarters here. So I'm just making an incision here in the bottom, and I'll split this open like this and cut it again. And then I'm going to show you how to salt them. So this is the most important part of making kimchi, is the salting process. You can either use salt to just kind of put salt in between layers, which I'm going to show you right now. What we're looking for is for this to release water and for it to be seasoned. So when it's fermenting, it's only keeping good bacteria and bad bacteria away. So what we're going to be using is we'll be using Korean, like a big sea salt. And you can see like how big coarse salt this is. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a little bit in my hand and putting it in each layer. Napa Cabbage has a thicker, stockier bottoms and then leafier top. And I'm just kind of putting more of the salt in the bottom. And this would basically kind of wilt on its own. I have ones that I've done yesterday, so they're ready to go. You can see how pliable they are. The thicker part right here has gotten very soft. So what I've done is I basically, like I said, I put salt between them. I put it over about 12 hours. And then I have rinsed it and they've been squeezed. So this is what I'll be using to make kimchi. Now it's time to make the kimchi base. This is the one part my mom gets always so excited about, the fact that how easily we make kimchi base here, because she remembers, making kimchi in Korea is such a big deal and they've never used a blender. So it was always using like small grater to grate all your ginger and garlic and onion and stuff. So it would take her forever before. I'm using some onion here and Asian pear. I got some ginger and some garlic. So right here. I am using 2 different fish sauce. One is anchovy, one is sandless. I think I'm putting about 2 tablespoons right here. Okay, and this is the one ingredient that's really interesting for a lot of people. So I will be using a salted shrimp. They are literally tiny, tiny baby shrimps just been salted, and the flavor is just like, it's salty but it's really sweet, so they are really amazing. This is a part you may omit, but this just also makes the flavor that much more scrumptious. So that goes in, and I'm going to start blending this. There you go. So it's blended. You can see how kind of like big slurry this made. And then I'm going to be using a Korean coarse pepper powder, pepper flakes. You can see that they are really nice and shiny. They're big flakes. They're not too spicy, but they have tons of flavor. So I'm putting about a cup of that in here. Okay. So this is all done. And you can put kind of a little more or less, depends on your liking of how spicy you want it to be. So I want to just taste how it is right now. Make sure that it's good to go. It's perfect. So biggest thing is that you don't want it to be too salty. Okay, 1 second. I got stuck. It actually just kind of went the wrong way. Back to where we were. This kimchi base is really good. It's not too spicy, it's not too salty. You don't want to make your kimchi to be like salty when you're making it, because then you'll just end up with really salty product, and you just want it to be everything be flavorful. As it sits, it'll mellow out, and as it ferments, it's going to turn into really nice, sour, awesome flavor. Cabbage is here ready to go. I'm going to wear a glove. Obviously, there's an easier way to do it. You can just kind of chop this up and then put it in a bowl and toss everything. The reason why doing it this way is nicer is that when you are presenting kimchi, having a like perfectly layered kimchi is known to be more a polite way of serving kimchi. So I'm grabbing a little bit of kimchi base and in my hand and just kind of rubbing each layers, just kind of like how you have opened up each layers with your salt. I'm putting more in the bottom of it here. And go through all the layers and then kind of holding it like that. So what you're trying to do is you're kind of making them tight so there will be no kind of air. Obviously, any kind of fermentation, air is the one thing that you don't want in your fermenting container. If you don't have any jars or like fermenting crocks or anything like that, actually one of the really easy way to do this is using a Ziploc bag. So I have a Ziploc bag here, and then I'll open up like this. And then one that's been tightly kind of folded, I'll put it here. And then you can kind of basically squeeze this, all the air out, and then close it. So the whole thing is basically you want to ferment them about 3 to 4 days in room temperature. In day 1 or 2, you'll kind of turn them so that you'll ferment evenly, and then you can put it in your fridge. So it's been just about 3 days. The kimchi has been sitting outside, but they're not quite there yet. But I want to use it to make this kimchi soba salad, and it'll be perfect because it'll be nice, still nice and crunchy. So I'm making the sauce for the salad first, and I'll be using some mirin, gochujang, rice vinegar, some sesame oil, and that's really easy, just like that. So you just have to basically mix everything together and the sauce is ready to go. Okay, so I'm gonna wear gloves to cut my kimchi. You'll probably see me doing that all the time because it can get a little messy, and I don't know if you can see it, I'm using a black cutting board. Kimchi is one thing that if you use a white cutting board, sometimes it leaves a stain. So having a darker color cutting board actually is very nice. Cutting it into small bite size. I'm just cutting it straight down. There you go. Ready to mix everything. Soba noodle that's been cooked right here. I'm gonna be mixing them with my sauce that I made and some kimchi. Let's see. So good. Okay, so I just switched my cutting board just to cut some garnishes here. I'm gonna be using some scallions. You can use any kind of greens or any other herbs that you have in your fridge. This is a really easy dish that, as long as you have the sauce and kimchi, you can kind of put anything else in there. So still, I'm gonna plate this kimchi soba salad. Make sure you get some of those awesome kimchis that you guys just made. Get some eggs, scallions, and I like to put some seaweed and sesame right here. Super easy. The whole point of this is that you did a lot of work by making kimchi, and kimchi is doing all the work for you at this one. So this is our kimchi soba salad. You have to try your dish. That is part of cooking. So here is our kimchi soba salad. Alright, so our first dish is down. Okay, let's just wait another few more days and we can have perfect kimchi for Kimchi Cheese Pancake. It's been about a week or so. Now my kimchi is just perfect. Flavor is really good. It's nice and sour, but not too crazy. And we're gonna be making kimchi cheese pancake. I've actually haven't been making kimchi like all my life or anything like that. After college, I went to cooking school and I was working at French restaurants afterwards. So I never was really cooking even Korean food back then. And then I met my husband when I was working in this restaurant in New York City. He and I were going out for maybe a month or two or so, and he invited me over to his house to cook me a dinner. And then like I was completely just floored because he has shown me this jar of kimchi that he has just made, you know, from this cookbook that he got. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I am a Korean cook, but I have never made kimchi in my life. And here's this like white boy making this kimchi for me. And I was just like, oh shit, this is so embarrassing. I need to really learn how to make it. And also finding this person who was in love with this Korean culture and Korean food. And that's sort of how I really ended up going into learn how to cook Korean food and going into working at Korean restaurants and eventually opening these two restaurants here in Seattle. So we're gonna be making this kimchi batter. So I'm gonna be mixing all the dry ingredients together first. I got flour and I'm putting some cornstarch, which kind of gives a little bit of crunchiness, some salt. So I got some garlic powder and some onion powder here for the flavor of your batter, and then a little bit of a baking powder, and that's all my dry ingredients. I'm gonna mix them well, and then I'll also mix my wet ingredients here. So I have 1 egg, and I have gochujang. So there's my, I think it's about 2 tablespoons, 1 tablespoon, perfect. And then 3/4 of water. My egg is already broken into, and then now I'm gonna mix my wet into my dry. So you're just looking for your normal sort of pancake consistency, and it's gonna get nice color from your gochujang, Korean chili paste, and this is ready to go. I'm gonna be adding my kimchi here that it's about a week old. Smaller pieces will actually make it easier to eat later. I'll use my spatula to mix that in. Perfect. So this is your kimchi pancake batter. And let's start cooking. Putting a little bit of oil in this non-stick pan. So cheese, like why cheese? It's so weird that you will find this kimchi and cheese together. And I'm sure what you are thinking, you must be like, oh God, this is not traditional Korean recipe whatsoever. Why am I making this? However, if you do go to Korea, go to any like popular Korean restaurants in like Sinchon, Myeongdong, like, you know, like where the young crowds hang out, you'll find cheese in almost every single dish. You'll find it in Korean barbecue, kimchi fried rice. You'll find it in tteokbokki, which is spicy rice cake. Oddly, cheese and this spicy kimchi or chili kind of dishes go so well. You'll see that this creamy kind of a fatty cheese really helps to kind of mellow down the spiciness of it, and they're just kind of match made in Korea. So I'm putting about a cup of batter here. You want to kind of spread it into about a half an inch thickness. I don't want to put my cheese in too early. I'm using half mozzarella and half cheddar. I'm going to put it in just before I'm about to flip, so I don't want it to like melt on top or anything, but I want to have enough time for it to stick. Here you go. And also what it does is that, when you flip it, you'll see that the other side will be kind of nice and crunchy from this like pan-seared cheese. So it adds texture, it adds flavor, it's just like the salty kind of funky cheese. Like this is just like such a perfect thing. I'm just kind of swirling and just making sure they're cooking all evenly. I'm seeing some color, so I'm gonna flip right here. Perfect. So it is having this perfectly brown color. Just using my spatula to squeeze out any unevenness so they're nice and flat again. And again, the other side has cheese on it, so make sure you're not like burning it too much or anything. It's going on this medium heat, and this will be just perfect. Adding a teeny more oil just so that like I have a little bit of buffer with the cheese. That's it. It's just gonna take about a minute or two there. If we feel like we're getting too much color but it's not cooked all the way, you can always pop it in the oven. These are ready. It's nice and crunchy, the color is nice and golden brown, you don't want it too dark. You know, this is just perfect. So I'm just gonna cut it into like a little normal pizza. All right, so I'm going to try my kimchi pancake. Here we go. It's a little salty from the cheese. I can taste the sourness from kimchi, and this texture is so perfect because it's kind of nice and crispy outside and soft inside. Pancake is such a perfect best for kimchi, and you can eat this with really anything. All right, fast forward like 2 years later. No, just kidding. Don't have to wait for 2 years. I actually happen to have this really old kimchi that's been in my fridge that I just been eyeing and waiting for this right moment. So I'm gonna make kimchi pork belly stew with that. We all have it in our fridge. You know, if you have one of those, you know, jars of kimchi that you forgot in the corner and it's been getting funkier and funkier, you don't know what to do with, actually this is the perfect dish for it because it's actually really good. Like funkier the kimchi is, better the taste. So we have really old kimchi here. And then I got a 8 ounce of pork belly, some miso. You can also use Korean bean paste, doenjang, and some tofu. And this is really simple, kind of really basic, but the flavor and the depth it comes from is all this kimchi that's been fermenting and getting really funky. So I'm gonna cut this pork belly into sort of like a large lardon. You can make it big or small as you like. People love pork belly with their kimchi. It's one of their favorite things to have. So I'm just gonna put this whole thing in here in my pot. Perfect. Awesome. So I'm looking for that to render out some fat. And then in the meanwhile, I'm gonna cut my kimchi. To be honest, this one that I have here, I think I had it in my fridge for almost, it could be 3 years, but it's actually almost 2 years. This one's just kind of been just like fermenting for a really long time. So I'm just turning it into a bite size. And I'm going to be actually using all the liquids here. So the pork belly is rendering out really beautifully. I'm seeing a little bit of color. And you can hear the fat is rendering, the color is getting a little bit brown. I'm going to add all my kimchi here. So there we go. So that's in there. And then I'm going to put about a couple of tablespoons of miso. So it just basically gives another layer of a little bit of saltiness. And then the flavor is just really perfect. And then about 2 cups of water. So they'll give me kind of enough time for kimchi and pork belly to cook down together. For this pork belly, it'll take about like 30 to 40 minutes to get it all cooked. So the kimchi pork belly stew has been cooking for about a half an hour. I'm going to just cut my tofu and then put it in and give it another 5-10 minutes for tofu to get the flavor. Alright, so our stew is all cooked. It's, oh my god, smells amazing. Because you can really smell that like super funkiness of the kimchi, but the smell and everything has really mellowed out, and the pork belly is tender. So I'm just gonna put it into my small like serving crock. Get some kimchi and pork belly at the bottom. So this is actually a version that I have never tried before. I haven't tried my a little over 2-year-old kimchi. Oh wow. The flavor is really good. So this is kind of dish that when it's like cold and like depressing or like you need something that's really comforting, this is just such a perfect dish because when the sourness changes and kind of mellows out and sweetens, the flavor is something that you cannot really quite explain. All right, I'm gonna have a piece of pork belly. It's not funky anymore. I think it's really, gonna be really awesome dish that you can have it in your fridge and you can just heat it up with your rice. Perfect dish to enjoy really old, funky, but delicious kimchi. Alright guys, that was very funky time hopefully. So we made kimchi and then learned how to do 3 different dishes. Please like and subscribe to Food and Wine YouTube channel. If you're ever in Seattle, come to Joule and Revel and check us out.